Hey everyone, we all spend a huge chunk of our lives dreaming. And forever, we've basically been told that our dreams are these secret, symbolic messages bubbling up from our subconscious. But what if that's not the whole story? What if dreams have less to do with psychology and way more to do with physics? I know, it sounds pretty out there, but it's a radical idea that could completely change how we think about what's happening when we close our eyes at night. So let's dive in. You know the feeling, right? You wake up from a dream that was so bizarre, so incredibly vivid, and you just can't shake it. You're convinced it has to mean something. You start asking yourself, okay, what is my subconscious trying to tell me here? It's that exact question that's fueled our fascination with dreams for centuries. For the longest time, the main idea has been pretty simple. Dreams are symbolic. They're a language we need to decode. But a really fascinating new theory is starting to take hold, and it completely flips the script. It says, hey, maybe dreams aren't messages to be interpreted, but are actually physical events that we can understand. That shift in thinking is exactly what we're going to unpack today. Now, before we get to the new stuff, we really have to get a handle on the traditional view, the one most of us probably grew up with. This is what you might call the dreamer's dilemma. So, the traditional take from thinkers like Robert Haas is that dreams speak their own language. It's a language of images, of colors, of feelings. In this world, your dreams are like a direct hotline to all your unresolved emotions and internal struggles. And the most important part? You, the dreamer, are the only one who can truly know what it all means. It's a deeply personal, psychological way of looking at it. And you can totally see why this is so appealing, right? The idea that when we're asleep, our brain just drops all its filters and lets us peek at what's really going on deep down inside, that's a powerful thought. It turns dreaming into this incredible tool for self-discovery. But this way of thinking leaves us with some really tricky questions. I mean, if my brain wants to tell me I'm feeling a loss of control, why show me a dream of falling? Why not just, a giant flashing sign that says, you feel a loss of control? And what's with the crazy scene changes? Why do we jump from our childhood home to the surface of the moon with no logic at all? The traditional view doesn't really have a solid answer for that. And this, right here, is where our story takes a sharp turn. To answer those puzzles, we have to pop the hood and look at the hidden physics of the dreaming brain. And trust me, it offers a completely different explanation. So here it is, the big what if. What if we've been trying to read our dreams like they're a mysterious old book, when we should have been studying them like they're a weather system? This is the whole idea behind a new framework called the Brain Kinematics Model, or BKM for short. Okay, so at the very heart of the BKM is this wild idea. It asks you to imagine the outer layer of your brain, the cortex, not just as a bunch of neurons, but as a physical elastic sheet. Seriously, picture a piece of rubber stretched tight. In this model, every single memory you have, every thought, actually creates a tiny bit of physical tension or strain on that sheet. Then, when you're asleep, your brain is firing on all cylinders, replaying memories, processing emotions, and all that activity, according to this theory, sends out literal ripples. They call them strain carrier waves across that elastic sheet of a cortex. It's just like dropping a bunch of pebbles into a still pond. And this is where it gets really mind-bending. Your memories aren't just stored away neatly like files in a computer. Nope. They form these incredibly complex geometric patterns, almost like fractals. So when those strain waves start rippling across the cortex, they physically interact with these memory patterns. And it's that physical interaction that generates the images you see in your dreams. It's physics, not psychology. It all comes together in this 4-step process. So step 1, your brain activates and replays memories. Step 2, that activity creates physical strain waves that spread out. Step 3, and this is key, those waves jumble everything up, blurring the lines between past, present, and what you've imagined. And finally, step 4, your brain's visual system looks at this messy, complex strain pattern and basically says, okay, what's the closest picture I have in my memory that looks like that? And then it shows you that image. That's your dream. So, if all of this is true, what does it mean for all those classic dream symbols we've spent so much time trying to figure out? Well, it means we can basically create a whole new kind of dream dictionary, one based on the physics of the brain, not on symbolic interpretation. Let's take the classic dream of falling. Symbolically, we say it means a loss of control or insecurity. But in the BKM model, that feeling is a direct translation of a physical event happening in your brain, a sudden collapse of support in that elastic cortical field.
The psychological feeling and the physical event are just two sides of the very same coin. How about flying? We always associate that with freedom and transcendence. Well, the physical explanation is just as cool. It's what you experience when high-frequency strain waves are moving smoothly across your cortex with basically nothing getting in their way. Your brain feels that frictionless movement and just renders it as flying. Simple as that. Or what about dreaming of water? That's almost always linked to our deep emotions. The BKM model suggests that this corresponds to these powerful, low-frequency waves being pumped out by the emotional centers of your brain. The image of water is simply your brain's best visual guess for what that kind of wave looks like.
And let's do one more, the nightmare of being chased. That feeling of raw anxiety and wanting to escape? It maps perfectly onto the physics of a high-energy strain packet, a big, concentrated burst of tension being driven by your brain's fear center. It's so powerful that it's just dominating everything else that's happening in your brain at that moment.
Okay, so if dreams are really all about rebalancing physical strain in the brain, then what's the point? What's their ultimate purpose? This, my friends, is where the theory gets truly profound.
See, this new way of thinking doesn't just throw out all the old ideas. It actually brings them together. Traditional dream science says dreams help us regulate our emotions. The BKM theory says they redistribute physical strain. And another idea, called continuity theory, says they help us rebalance our very sense of who we are. The amazing part is, this unified model says it's not a choice between them. It's all three, all happening at the same time. So the best way to think about it is this. Dreaming is your mind's ultimate nightly maintenance routine. Every night, it's doing a physical job, regulating strain. It's doing a cognitive job, integrating your memories. And it's doing an existential job, making sure your sense of self, your story, stays coherent from one day to the next. This model even suggests that these physical brain processes are so fundamental, so baked into the human experience, that we see echoes of them in our oldest stories and myths. Think about it. Tales like Pandora's Box or Adam and Eve. At their very core, they're stories about a sudden rupture in a stable system, a massive shift in continuity, which is exactly what this theory says is happening in our brains every single night.
And that brings us to what might be the single biggest takeaway from all of this. Dreams don't speak in symbols. They just appear symbolic to us. Why? Because that's the best way our memory can make sense of the complex physical dynamics happening inside our own heads. The symbol isn't the cause, it's the effect.
So let's just end with this thought. If your dreams aren't secret-coded messages, if they're actually a beautiful, chaotic, moment-by-moment portrait of the physical forces at play inside your brain, then what does that reveal about the nature of consciousness itself? What does it say about that deep, mysterious connection between the physical matter of our brain and the abstract thing we call our mind? Now that is something to sleep on.